Blessings, good evening. So a few questions today. First one is, Dear Luang Por, is it possible for a lay person to achieve progress on the Noble Eightfold Path and attain stream entry in this day and age? Simple answer is yes. Difficult answer is, well, it all depends on many factors, causes and conditions. Like everything in the Buddha's teachings, stream entry has its causes, and we have to make those causes happen. The Noble Eightfold Path is, you could say, cultivating that, developing that, to develop insight into the Four Noble Truths, in particular suffering, its origin and then its cessation, would be one way of talking about the cause. The cause is you put effort into cultivating, developing that path sincerely, thoroughly, constantly, until the fruit arises. The path is the cause, we call that magga. Phala, or the fruit, is the result. So as long as people are cultivating this magga, then there's the opportunity for the fruit to arise in their hearts. As we know, all the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path have to be cultivated. We can't miss any bit out, so it's not like you can pick and choose, or you can be weak over here and focus just on the bit you like or you're good at. All aspects have to be cultivated well together, like 8 segments of a whole, of a circle. So for the circle to be complete, they all have to be there. For the mind to be purified of greed, anger, delusion, or the 10 fetters to be abandoned, the fetters that bind the mind to the world, the Noble Eightfold Path has to be cultivated. Even then, it's a step-by-step process. The first 3 fetters are abandoned by the stream enterer, and so on. The other fetters are weakened and ultimately abandoned until one reaches Nibbana. So, the basic challenge of the practice, I'm not sure it's changed that much since the time of the Buddha. The world has changed in terms of the way the world is run and the number of people and the way it's governed, and then the economy and the technology and many things in that sense. The environment have changed over the years, over the centuries, but basic human frailties, weaknesses, cravings and attachments are still the same. We had people full of greed, anger and delusion in the time of the Buddha, but who managed to free themselves from that. And then we have people full of greed, anger and delusion today who have freed their minds from that today and are freeing their minds from greed, anger and delusion. It's an ongoing thing. The history of Buddhism is not finished yet, so you could be the next Aryapugala. But you have to cultivate this path. It's set out there for you in the words of the Buddha and then the words of our teachers such as Ajahn Kalyano and many others. We have everything available for us. The teachings are still available today. Whether it's in the time of the Buddha or today, the keeping of the 5 precepts doesn't change, does it? You still can devote yourself to these 5 precepts as training rules for daily life. You can devote yourself to not killing to the point where your mind is free from the intention to kill. It no longer arises. It's just, there's no more causes for that intention and that kind of karma to arise in your mind. You've abandoned it through all your efforts, keeping and determining to keep precepts, cultivating loving kindness, cultivating mindfulness and insight to the point where that intention is seen as harmful to oneself and to others, and one abandons it and it doesn't arise again. Same with all the 5 precepts. And you can still do that today, just as in the time of the Buddha. You can listen to the Dhamma, probably easier than in the time of the Buddha now, isn't it? We've got technology. You can listen to the good teachings of the Buddha, read or listen every day, all day if you want. Pretty much all over the world, because now we have the World Wide Web and you've got access to the Dhamma wherever you are in the world. So you can be in the middle of the ocean listening to a Dhamma talk, you can be in the middle of the desert, in the middle, on top of a mountain, it doesn't really matter. You've got access to the teachings, teachers are all over the place, more and more. Buddhism is established in different parts of the world. So opportunities to practice, here the teachings are there. The teachings are complete and available. It's all down to us. And no excuses. Because that's what stops us practicing. That's what stops people becoming stream enterers in there as lay people. There's always something else to do. More important, more interesting, more urgent, easier. Because of course this path isn't necessarily always easy. It's challenging, difficult, requires effort, and requires you to go against a lot of your habits and accumulated attachments, and we don't like to give them up. That's probably the biggest obstacle, isn't it? Even when you say, oh, the world is very complex and confusing and there's too much activity and it's very chaotic and too much technology and this and that, and all of that may be true, but in the end it's whether we're willing to train, whether we're willing to practice. And our habit through ignorance is we want to get what we want, get the things we want, do the things we like, follow our preferences. We're not necessarily ready to see preferences as still as conditions that are impermanent, not self. We still identify with them, defend them, follow them. We have all our needs. So that is blocking us from seeing the truth. So we'll put our needs and our preferences before the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, so our faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha is maybe not strong, it's a bit shaky. And we put all our other kind of duties, even things that you could say are good and important things, like say family and work and different duties in society, responsibilities. We'll put them first to the point where they become an attachment that actually blocks us in the practice. And you can have a family and still become a stream enterer, but you've got to incorporate the Dhamma practice into that. And so often we hear people say, well, I've got a family, so I've got no time to practice the Dhamma. Ajahn Chah would say things like, well, do you have time to breathe? Just having a family doesn't stop you breathing, otherwise you wouldn't be here. If you have time to breathe, you have time to be mindful of your breath. You still may be raising a family, working, doing all kinds of things for other people, as we say we do. But you can practice the Noble Eightfold Path as you do that. You can be mindful of your breath, mindful of your posture, mindful of what you're thinking. You can practice right livelihood, right action, right speech in any situation. But we have to dedicate ourselves to that. And then there's a chance for these factors of the Noble Eightfold Path to really become strong and work together to free your mind from all kinds of defilement. And these fetters, these first three fetters, self-view, skeptical doubt, and attachment to practices and rites and rituals, that can all drop away if you put effort into the practice sooner or later. Just going on a retreat is a good start, but it's not enough. You have to practice on a daily basis, and that's what everyone says is the challenge, isn't it? Keeping up practice of mindfulness, keeping the precepts in the society around us, keeping enthusiastic to practice the Dhamma, keeping up what we call the chanda, the kusala chanda, the willingness and the desire to practice is a challenge. So you have to learn how to do it. And there's something the Buddha said, if you want to progress in the practice, you have to learn how to inspire yourself, how to arouse energy. We have teachers and Dhamma friends which help, and so associate with your teachers, your Dhamma friends, because that will support you. But they can't do it for you alone. You have to learn how to develop the skill of bringing up energy and enthusiasm from the practice and over again. Cultivate that. So, Ajahn Chah used to say, when you want to do it, you practice. When you don't want to do it, you still practice. Whether we're talking about the precepts, sometimes we don't want to keep the precepts, but you still keep them. Sometimes we don't want to meditate, but you still meditate. Sometimes we don't want to let go of a certain attachment, but you still let go because you know it's a cause of suffering. We have to learn how to do that and to go against the grain of our desires, our attachments, and all the bad habits we've accumulated. You have to learn how to keep doing that over and over again until they drop away. Things change in the mind. And that's the Sotapanna. Their mind has changed from an unenlightened, ordinary unenlightened mind. Their mind has become the mind of a noble one. They still have certain mental defilements left, but they're not as strong or overwhelming as before. And the insight into the three characteristics is established. So there's an insight into impermanence, suffering, not self. Insight into Nibbana, that there is the unconditioned. The Sotapanna has unwavering faith in that because they've had a glimpse of it. So they never fall back. They can never be swayed from their practice. They keep practicing however long it's going to take. So yes, it's possible in this day and age. You don't have to get involved with things that when you say, oh, the world is complex, there's too much technology and too many requirements for work and social things. Well, you have choices there. And that's where you have to think about your life, whether your life is supporting the practice of Dhamma or just you're doing things that are throwing up endless obstacles and distractions and taking you away from the Dhamma. Especially when you're young, you should make those choices because the older you get, it's harder to change. It's not impossible, but it's harder. So if you have any kind of inkling to try meditation, go on a meditation retreat, spend time in a monastery or something like that, then I would do it. Because the opportunities may get harder or fewer as you go through life, or you just may become uninterested over time. Your practice of the Dhamma is something you have to nourish, like a plant. You have to water it, fertilize it, feed it, look after it. And so people can have a bit of faith for a while and then they stray away. Then they wonder why at the end of their life they're feeling down, depressed, confused, attached, because they didn't keep up practice. So it's up to us to listen to the teachers, follow the good examples, and there have been examples of lay people who have attained stream entry in the lay life with their families, with their jobs, with their various responsibilities in the world. There are those over in history since the time of the Buddha right up to the present day who've done it. Probably the majority of those people would end up as monks and nuns and go off and live in somewhere quieter than the family situation. If they stay at home, then they try and arrange their life so it suits the practice, rather than them trying to practice with all kinds of things that don't suit the practice, which is where we start from. So even arrange the home to suit Dhamma practice, and maybe get their own kuti in the backyard, and their own lifestyle, supportive lifestyle. That's up to us to make choices, wise choices, and work towards it. It may take time, but you can do it. I often quote the nun who had something like 8 children and then so many grandchildren, I couldn't remember how many, 15 grandchildren or something. The Buddhist nun, she was obviously she was not a mum to start, not a nun to start with. She was a mum with a family business she helped to run, and bringing up her kids, getting them educated till they're adult, and then they get jobs and their own families. And when everything was ready, when all her kids had grown up and starting to have their own families and jobs and families, then the mother, or now the grandmother, went off and ordained as a nun and stayed in a Buddhist monastery for many years. And one of the reasons she did that is because she knew if she's in the Buddhist monastery as a nun, shaving her head, taking precepts as a nun, the rest of the family, all these kids and grandkids, would have to visit her because they loved her and they supported her. They didn't want to ignore her, so they'd have to go regularly to visit her in the monastery. So that was a conscious decision to get the family closer to Buddhism by living in a monastery, and then they come and visit, do some dana, charity, volunteering, meditate, chant, listen to the talks, getting them involved in Buddhism so their faith grew. And I saw that happen over many years. They had lots of faith and kept up their faith in the Dhamma, partly through the grandmother's example. And then when the grandmother got so ill, because she's getting old, in her 80s, they brought her back home as a nun still, put her in a separate part of the house so she could live as a nun, separate from the rest of the family and the grandkids, but not so separate that they couldn't meet her, look after her. And she would always encourage them to practice mindfulness, keep the precepts, be mindful. She used the meditation object Buddha, just chant Buddha, 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 and grandkids go in and see Granny and say, "Oh, how can I practice Buddhism?" "You've got to practice Buddha, recite Buddha, Buddha." And if it's your granny, you often believe your granny, don't you? If it's someone younger, you may doubt or argue, but if it's someone of sort of standing in the community, in your family, someone of age and good character, then you tend to believe them more, don't you? So she could introduce other younger members of the family into meditation and practice and the Dhamma because they believed her. She was a nun, so she'd already made some renunciation, which gave her a certain authority to encourage and teach the rest of the family. And when she got close to death, they kept asking, "What do you need?" Medicine, some treat, some nice food, something or other. It was always, "No, I don't need anything, I just need Buddha. I need you to recite Buddha." That was the gift from the granny who was a nun. And then she passed away. So if you really make the Dhamma practice the centre of your life, which is what a Sotapanna would do, I mean, you have to rehearse being a Sotapanna before you're a Sotapanna, don't you? So you can practice being a Sotapanna. You say, "Oh, what do Sotapannas do? What do stream enterers do?" Well, they keep the precepts, they meditate, they listen to the Dhamma, respect the Dhamma, they live a life supporting insight into the three characteristics, into the impermanent nature of reality, of physical and mental phenomena. So you may not be a Sotapanna yet, but you can live like one, and you have to create that lifestyle through your faith. You can't wait for someone else to do it, it's never going to happen. And if you keep following the excuses, you're not going to do it. So you have to set aside the excuses and do it. Next question. Luang Por, how should we practice if World War III begins? Maybe it has begun and we just don't know. I mean, we're living in the forest here on the edge of Melbourne. Who knows what's happening on the other side of the world at this moment? Could have begun already. But in another sense, I mean, there's always World War III, World War I, II, III, whatever, because there's been war since before the Buddha, during the Buddha's time, and now there are wars around the world. It's nothing new. They're very unfortunate, and human beings get so caught into their attachments that they start hurting each other, whether it's individuals, groups, or governments. So there are already plenty of wars around, as we know from the news. But in a way, you're already at war with defilements. That's one way teachers will talk. You're here to fight and not give in to your defilements, meaning these negative emotions rooted in craving, attachment, coming from ignorance. They're already there affecting us. Greed, anger, delusion. It's already there affecting your mind. And it is quite a battle, a spiritual battle. So maybe World War III is a spiritual war. Internal. That you have to fight or work with your own defilements. Again, no one else can do it for you, and they're already there. They're already doing their thing, causing you suffering, and sometimes you cause other people suffering as well. That's already going on. So World War III is here, it's already happened. It's just we're talking now about an internal war within you. So the Buddha said you have to live with this quality we call apamada, heedfulness. It's one of the ways he summarized his teaching, his practice. Apamada, all the teachings of Buddha fit inside this word apamada, heedfulness, as do all the footprints of the animals in the forest, fit inside the footprint of the elephant. If you practice heedfulness, then your mind is prepared, because you don't exactly know what's around the corner, do you? You don't know what you're going to think or feel or do tomorrow exactly. You don't know what's coming, you don't know what your vibhaka karma, your old karma giving fruit will bring. Tonight, tomorrow, we don't know how long we'll live, we don't know what the world will be like tomorrow, whether there'll be a large-scale war, small-scale war, or no war. We hope for the best, but we don't know. So when you don't know and the future is uncertain, you practice heedfulness, mindfulness, wise reflection. Keep the precepts, don't make bad karma that will come back on you. So whether there's a World War III or not, that's what you should be doing if you're following the footsteps of the Buddha. So in that sense, you're already prepared for the World War III if it happens, and if it doesn't happen, good, all the better. Less people are hurt, less destruction, better conditions for Dhamma practice. But even if it does happen, you just carry on practicing what the Buddha taught anyway. And if there was a large war in the world, well, maybe you can still practice in wherever you live. War doesn't always affect everyone all of the time. Very unfortunate things, and a lot of people get killed, and destruction, of course. But maybe wherever you are, you can just carry on practicing the Dhamma that you know in the best way that you can. Anyway, you should be doing that whether there's no World War III. What do human beings do? We tend to respond to crisis, don't we? So usually when there is a bit of a crisis, that motivates us to practice more. Sometimes it's your personal crisis, you have illness or some big problem comes up in your life, a relationship problem or lose your job or something, may prompt you to want to practice Dhamma more. That's not unusual. But maybe it'd be a world level crisis of war or conflict. It may remind you of how fragile life is and how important and precious your time is, and you need to practice. That's kind of heedfulness. One aspect of it is the urgency to practice, because you realize you're not going to be here forever. The opportunity to practice Dhamma is not always going to be so good. Therefore, practice more today, right now, while you can. So, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths don't change whether there's World War III or not. Many monks I know of were getting enlightened during World War II. Lumpur Man and many of his disciples were becoming noble ones during World War II. And World War II was affecting Thailand like most other countries. There was Japanese troops stationed there was bombing, Allied bombing of the Japanese, fighting, prisoners of war, death, unfortunately, economic hardship, and yet there were still people dedicated to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and realizing the fruits and becoming Sotapannas or Arahants during the Second World War. It's just, the history books of the world don't talk much about that. They focus on governments and battles and who won and who lost and all of that. But actually, there's people fighting their personal battles against the defilements and winning during the Second World War. You might just call it a parallel world, and Dhamma practice is a little bit like that. Whatever's going on in the world, however peaceful or disturbed it is, someone practicing the Dhamma is going to be dedicated to their practice, whatever, and it may just be happening side by side, and not just World War II, but other wars, like World War I. The Vietnam War, Korean War, and current wars. There are people currently practicing very well in this world, practicing, developing the Noble Eightfold Path, realizing the fruits of the Noble Eightfold Path in this day and age, in this world as it is now, even though there are unfortunately a lot of wars going on here and there. So it's not an absolute obstacle. Obviously, if you're living in a war zone, it's very difficult. You just do the best you can, but not everyone is. You may be a war somewhere else, but you're not facing war where you live, so just make use of that good chance to practice. And the way of practice doesn't change. Sila, Samadhi, Panya, do the best you can with the situation you have. Maybe if more people practice Dhamma, we won't have World War III. People make enough good karma that can have a good effect on the world, subtly on the sort of spiritual side of the world, other realms, subtly on human beings. The more people who value keeping sila, practicing kindness and compassion, using wise reflection, not promoting aggression and violence, well, that can help. Not to be naive, but the more we do individually, the better that's going to have an effect on the people around us and the world around us. So who knows? Next question. Lumpur, when I meditate using mindfulness of breathing, sometimes I become calm and the thinking stops. But what should I do next? Carry on. I assume if you're calm and the thinking is stopping, as you say, it's probably because you have improved, stronger mindfulness on your object. So if it's the breath, I imagine you're more able to stay focused and mindful of the in and out breath. And thoughts are, even if they're still arising, they're not disturbing you, they're not pulling your mind away like they do when you first begin your meditation. As your mindfulness improves, it's more continuous. Luang Por Chah used to say like drops from a tap. Those drops join up as you open the tap to become a continuous flow. So if you continuously put attention on the breath, know the breath, the beginning of the breath, the middle, the end, in and out, after a while thoughts are not going to influence your mind very much. They may stop altogether, or they just come up a little bit, come and go. Sensations, feelings, sounds, all these things influence the mind less and less, or impinge on the mind less and less, because you're now focused and knowing the breath only, more and more. And it's peaceful, it's pleasant, so that's one reason why you can keep doing it. Maybe even pain in the body disappears for a while, or at least becomes bearable. And you just stay with the breath. And you are still awake. No, you're not, assuming you're not asleep. You're awake, you're not dull, you're not asleep. You're fully awake, you're mindful, you're with your object. And you know it. So you're happy and you know it. You're with the breath. So then all this other stuff that normally is impinging on the mind drops away. It's not important. Even the feelings of the body can drop away, the heaviness of the body, the heaviness of moods, of distraction, anger, worry, desires for different things, all drops away because you're focused on the breath and staying with the breath, knowing the breath. So we say the 5 hindrances drop away, and so you experience the peace of one-pointedness. And that could be very brief, for a few moments, or it could be for many moments. So one thing you can do when you say, what can I do next? Just keep it going. Strengthen your mindfulness, your ability to stay with the object longer. Because there'll constantly be, sooner or later, there'll be distraction come back into your experience. One particular thought pattern or train of thought may catch you off guard, and you start thinking again. Or maybe a doubt, what am I going to do next? Even that can be a doubt that distracts you and catches you. Or maybe the level of pain and discomfort, tiredness in your body comes up stronger, so it's like you want to stay with the breath, but you start to get agitated by the pain. So there will always be something, sooner or later, that starts to distract you or pull your attention away from the breath. So one thing you can do is just practice staying with the breath longer. Practice your determination, refine your mindfulness. Don't let the mind stray from it. You can use some wisdom as well, remind yourself everything arises and ceases, it's impermanent, it's not self, not important, whatever. But try and stay with the breath as long as you can, and as you may have already experienced, the breath becomes more and more refined. Subtler and subtler, the movement in and out becomes less and less, to the point where maybe it just stops and your mind is still one-pointed, just knowing itself. You may also be aware of the breath, all over the body. There's all kinds of different experiences, different kinds of piti and sukha arise as well. But in the end, your mind is just very still, and the movement of the breath has stopped, so you're very physically still, mentally still, and all the other distractions are not bothering you. So keep that going as long as possible. But you may also turn to contemplate. And as I said, sooner or later distractions start to re-emerge, and you can contemplate them. Every thought is impermanent, it arises, ceases. Turn to watch that. Watch how the mind darts off, wanting something, or remembering something. But if you're strong enough in your mindfulness, you just watch that desire arise, pass away. Maybe a bit of craving, but it arises, passes away. Stimulated by something. How is it stimulated? A pleasant thought, pleasant idea, feeling, seeking pleasure, pleasure in the body, or it could be painful, pain in the body, and that stimulates a reaction, a train of thought. Now you're just watching, observing the arising and ceasing of phenomena. Or you can actually go into something a bit more, into the feeling. Really look at it, who owns this feeling, what is feeling? Is it a person, a being? Is it me, is it mine? Or a thought? Or, Ajahn Chah said, if you're not sure what to do, just go to the body and start contemplating the 32 parts of the body maybe, one by one. Visualize them, send your mind around the body. We call it going for a internal tour of your body. Try that. Sometimes you get very amazing results, sometimes not, but just experiment with contemplation of one thing or another within the bounds of the 3 characteristics, but also contemplating the body. But I mean, if you're contemplating the body parts, the 4 elements, again, you're coming back to the 3 characteristics. They're impermanent, they're suffering, they're not self. So contemplate, turn to do that for as long as you can maintain mindfulness. You're not distracted, the hindrances are sort of either gone or at least manageable, just sort of kept down. Contemplate while you can, do it well and efficiently, and try and learn from your experience. Learn how you form a sense of self around every feeling, every thought, every idea, every sensation. Maybe learn how we do that, and then learn that you don't have to do that. You can also let go and go back to just knowing with equanimity. So you're learning, as you contemplate you're learning, but your mind is very calm, so it can learn well. It's unbiased. You're not just running after your preferences and running away from your dislikes. You're just knowing, there is dislike, there's preference. You know the basis of it, or there's something you've thought of or seen or felt that was pleasant or something unpleasant. But now you're just watching. You say, this is not me, not myself, so therefore you don't have to take ownership of it, you don't have to grasp at it. Sometimes contemplation is led by your own mind. It knows what it has to contemplate. Something bothering you in your daily life, or some aspect of your thinking is going to come up. Other times you have to try by bringing up various objects. So it's not one fixed way of doing this. It depends on the situation, on the day, as you're practicing. Last question. I have a relative who for many years keeps going into debt and asking the rest of the family for money. Can you suggest how I should deal with this? Well, if you become a monk or a nun, then you end the problem. You got no money, so they'll leave you alone. So that's one way. If that's not possible, I guess the sort of basic, simple one is lock up your money so they can't get it too easily. Because generally people who go into debt often, for whatever reason, if you keep giving them, they'll keep coming to ask, won't they? So sometimes you have to learn to say no and also protect your wealth, your assets, whatever it is. So a common one is people who gamble. If you keep feeding the habit, they tend to get worse. So sooner or later you've got to stop, push back and say, no, I won't. And they'll get angry and you have to put up with that. But sooner or later you have to say no, don't you, I think? Not that you don't care about them, it's tough love. You're saying no because you want to help stop feeding the habit. If it's just other things, like they keep spending too much, they're just careless or addicted to spending money in different ways, well, again, you have to say no, to stop feeding the habit. If it's business, they keep asking for money to invest, and they invest and lose it all, and then they come back wanting more, and it's kind of endless cycle of failed investments and stuff. Well, again, you have to reach a point where you have to say no. As we practice metta and karuna, kindness and compassion for others, even if they're close, family, and often that's the problem, because they're close, they take advantage. They're not so worried about consequences because you're their family. Then sometimes you have to be using tough love or be firm, look after yourself as well as helping them. You have to balance it. You can't just give if they're wasting it all or being careless or harmful in their behavior. Sometimes you have to step back. Maybe wait until there's something you can do that's effective. Get them help, get them advice. Whatever it may be, do something that isn't necessarily doing what they want, so they may get upset, but you're doing something to help them, but in a more indirect way, or in a way that you're not actually following or encouraging their bad habits. And sometimes things change, don't they? If you say no, then you go away, maybe they'll think about it and change a bit for the better, maybe. So you have to sort of be confident that if you feel, you say this person has asked for too much and they're becoming a burden, they're just asking too much, they're harming the family, destroying the family, well, you have to maybe make some decisions, or either alone or with other family members, to protect against this person's behavior, perhaps. So even if they are family, sometimes you have to be very tough on them in order to wake them up or get them to change. How much you can do that, I don't know. It depends, doesn't it, on the karma. Some people you can help and will change. Some people don't ever seem to change. So you have to protect everyone else. If they're not changing, you have to protect the ones, your children, your husband, your wife, your parents, whoever is involved. You have to try and find ways to limit the harm. So I don't really know the details, so I can't talk specifically, but metta doesn't just mean giving in and doing what people want. If they're doing harmful things, you also sometimes have to say no. Maybe that's enough for tonight, and we'll talk again next time.